What would a Vic Fangio retirement do for the Philadelphia Eagles after the season they just had, after the way the defense played, after the drama that we had with a search for a new offensive coordinator? That while there are a lot of things to like about the new OC, a lot of Eagle fans are less than impressed because it seems like someone that may be great for the future, but that means it's a guy that you go get when your team's, 9-8 or 10-7 or 7-10, not when it is a Super Bowl window. We can't have a whole lot of learning on the job, right? So after all of that, then this comes out. Now, I wanted to do a video on this yesterday, but I wanted to wait because there was a lot of back and forth. There were a lot of people that were reporting it like this when this was not actually correct. About it says sources confirm that Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio is considering retirement. That turns out, and that sounds better for headlines, right? But it turns out that it's actually past tense, right? And even the way he says that the Eagles have considered Jim Schwartz and Jonathan Gannon, they know that, again, past tense. If we look at what Jimmy says and we get actually into it, considered Jim Schwartz and Jonathan Gannon for defensive coordinator job of Vic Fangio retirement scare. So apparently Vic thought about stepping away. He thought about retirement. He voiced that to the Eagles organization, and they convinced him to stay at least one more year. So there are a few things going on here, and we actually, this is Jimmy Kempski's article. To be fair, you can check it out. Philly Voice sources: Eagle considered Jim Schwartz and Jonathan Gannon for defensive coordinator job after Vic Fangio retirement scare. Now, interestingly enough, if you're going to go get Jim Schwartz, now would actually be the time to do it with everything that's been going on with him, what's been going on with the Cleveland Browns. But so, actually you would want to do that now. But here's the so other than that, here's the one issue I have, right? So here it says again, currently working on finalizing their coaching staff for 2026. Luckily it will, and in parentheses, probably still include Vic Fangio, because that is the big thing here that we have going on is obviously this was a big enough deal for Vic that he had thought about it enough, that he was serious enough that he went to the Eagles organization and yeah, I think I'm going to retire. They said, "Hey man, one," and I get the Eagles wanting to do, "Hey, one more year, please, one more year. Let's get this thing going. We've got a chance at a Super Bowl." And of course, Eagles now knowing ahead of time, they have an entire year to think about what they want to do post Vic Fangio, what they want to do with the defense, because obviously it may change again, trades and draft picks and all of that, because the Vic Fangio defense is built for Vic Fangio, right? In terms of the things he wants to do, the positions that he feels that are most important that we want to emphasize, the type of player that he wants in certain positions, all of that with the Eagles defense is about Vic Fangio, and someone else coming in may find different personnel or may find they want different personnel and because they have a different system, a different philosophy, then that's going to change things. So there's a lot going on with this, but I wanted to wait to see when I was seeing these conflicting things about, you know, he still is considering retirement versus this had already happened. However, and here's the final thing I want to leave you all with. And we're going to get into it here with this article, right? Because I think this is really important. For now, Fangio is back, though it should be noted that Philly Voice reached out to an Eagles spokesperson to confirm that Fangio is still the team's defensive coordinator, and they declined to answer until further notice. As such, wiggle room exists for Fangio to change his mind. So, this is a gamble for the Eagles in a couple of ways. Fangio can change his mind at any time. The longer it goes, and then maybe he decides to change his mind. Like, right, maybe we start when the season starts ramping up again, and Vic starts getting back into how much time he has to spend on this, the time and entry. He may be like, you know what? No, I can't. I changed my mind. I'm out. That, of course, puts the Eagles in a huge bind if this happens after the draft. Say it happens in summer after when they get into training camp or even maybe before that with mini camp. It obviously puts the Eagles in a bind in terms of who is going to be available, who they could go get. We can oh man, y'all are going to kill me because I'm completely blanking. Who did Dallas end up taking, right? That could have been somebody that replaced Vic Fangio, and if he had been kept on staff, then that's someone that could have been replacing Vic. Like I said about Jim Schwartz, if you were going to do that, you would have to do that now. So this is a big risk for the Eagles because Vic Fangio can end up changing his mind. So it says, in the interim between Fangio's short-lived retirement and his for now decision to return, a source said that the Eagles reached out to former Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon to gauge his interest in returning to the team should Fangio retire. Now that's true. Gannon is out there because he's been fired as the Arizona Cardinals head coach in the offseason, but hired by the Green Bay Packers to be their new defensive coordinator, right? So again, this goes back to what I was saying about the longer this goes on, it's a big risk if Vic Fangio decides later on that, yeah, you know what, I am going to retire. Eagles also in this at least planning to check on the availability of disgruntled Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, who, like Gannon, was also formerly the Eagles' defensive coordinator and who was reportedly unhappy about being passed over for the Browns' previously open head coaching job. Yeah, from what I hear, Jim Schwartz is very, very unhappy with the situation going on in Cleveland. But here is the final thing I want to talk about with this that is, I think, also a risk for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, it is a risk to convince Vic to stay when Vic, again, at any time could say, no, I changed my mind. And of course, the further that goes, I was going to say less likely, not, yeah, well, less likely that the Eagles get someone of quality to be the defensive coordinator. And again, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot during a Super Bowl window, which, a lot of franchises never get. And when franchises do get them, they're very, very small. And unfortunately, the Philadelphia Eagles seem to be shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. We did it by hiring Kevin Fangio, Kevin Patullo in the first place, right? And then having to fire him and then going through all this and then bringing in another guy unproven who, yes, has a high ceiling, but we need someone who can do a great job now. And look, I'm going to get into some videos on Sean that I've been researching and looking at things that he's done in the past and so forth. And there is a lot to hope for. Okay, so I'm not here to just crap all over that hire. I'm just trying to put it in context of the risk involved of hiring someone who's not proven when you're in a Super Bowl window. And then finally, what I'm keep trying to get to with Vic Fangio is Vic is already out in a way. Do you know what I mean? In terms of he's got 1 foot out. How much of the great Vic Fangio are we going to get this season for the Philadelphia Eagles? Do you understand what I mean? Like mentally, he's kind of, how could he not be checked out a little bit? He's had a great career. He's not a young guy. He had to be convinced to come back and, basically unretire for one more season. We all know what a absolute well, we don't know from experience, but we know from hearing about the stories what an absolute grind it is to be a coach at that level, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach in terms of the time and energy put into it to succeed in the NFL. It Vic may find he does, he's not fully into that, so maybe he's cutting back the time he spends and so on and so forth. So going to be an interesting offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles. Fingers crossed that Vic has been convinced and he's all in for the next season. That'll be important because it also, again, gives the Eagles all this time to prep for 2027 on the defensive side of the ball. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate it. Checking out the video as always. Do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe. I really do appreciate it. I will talk to you in the next video.